this game was a little more interesting than I thought it was going to be. Okay. Definitely at one point in the first quarter, I ate dinner a little late. It's starting to get dark here on the East Coast. I definitely thought I was going to fall asleep. Didn't fall asleep, though, because I'm a professional. I would never actually do that. Got on the exercise bike, did a little movement. Okay. That helps you actually stay awake, because when you get up and move. Different podcast for a different day. So this game turned out to be a little bit better than I thought it was. It juiced me up a little bit. So again, Dolphins lose by 10 points here to the Buffalo Bills. Was pretty close, though. At times it felt like the Bills were going to pull away and blow them out. Never really happened, which in a weird way actually speaks to the way that both teams operated in this game. So let's talk about both the teams here real quick and get to the takeaways. Start with the winners, as always, Buffalo. I think we learned a couple things about the Bills, besides the fact that we continue to learn that they're just a really good team. Shout out to Dalton Kincaid, had a couple of really nice catches in this one. Al Michaels called that second one in the end zone a drop. I would say that was just a really good play by the defender. Otherwise, he was like pretty close to scoring 3 touchdowns tonight. He comes away 66 yards and a touchdown on 6 targets, 5 receptions. You're going to hear a very funny moment that almost aged extremely poorly with Justin Boone and I later on in this show, but I won't spoil that in relation to Dalton Kincaid. But James Cook continues to do what he did, 19 carries, over 100 yards, 3 receptions as well. He gets into the end zone again. Man, James Cook is going to go down as a really good fantasy pick that I just feel like kind of went under discussed, maybe because he's already an established guy. He was kind of in that weird tier. There was the contract holdout and stuff. Certainly feels like we didn't talk enough about James Cook on this podcast. God, I'm thinking about that with like JT too. There's a lot of running backs that just kind of felt like they were the established guys. So we focused more on, all right, well, Breece Hall in this committee, let's talk a lot about that. Let's talk a lot about, I don't know, Christian McCaffrey and whether he's going to be healthy or not. Maybe next year got to do a better job of just talking about the established, boring guys and being like, hey, I want to take these guys. They're pretty good players. And that's been great for James Cook so far. I don't even mean to call him boring, because he looks awesome this year. I actually think he looks even better in isolation than previously. Just continues to beat back touchdown regression. The usage is really good for him. He's looking like a running back 1 in fantasy football, attached to the best quarterback in the league, one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, obviously. And otherwise, this Bills team is just set up to run the football. The offensive line, the continuity remains really strong. They're getting this guy, Jackson Hawes, involved in the blocking game. He caught 1 pass for 5 yards, which happened to be a touchdown in this game. But he's not some fantasy factor, but he's actually allowed them to kind of get away from some of their jumbo offensive line looks, some of their 6 offensive line looks. But that's just, again, his ability to block and sort of make that a real credible threat, like from the tight end position, which has been a struggle with Knox and Kincaid, obviously. That has just allowed their run game to be even better. So if you're a James Cook fantasy manager, you like this guy, Jackson Hawes. Buffalo is the first team to 3 wins this season. Of course, they played on Thursday night. They've won 10 straight home game versus the Dolphins. So they've got their number. The one thing we definitely learned, I think, in the passing game, this is just 2 weeks worth of evidence versus 1 week. In week 1, it appeared to be a real concentration of power in the wide receiver room between Keon Coleman, Joshua Palmer, and Khalil Shakir. The last 2 weeks, it's kind of gone back to the rotation. And, I think that makes sense. We're showing the tweet right now from Dwayne McFarland. Final data still coming in, same with what I'm looking at right here as well. 84.4% routes for Keon Coleman. Khalil Shakir, 81.3%. Josh Palmer falls down to 46.9% behind Dalton Kincaid for 4th on the team. Elijah Moore is involved. He made a couple plays. Tyrell Shavers, 2 catches for 24 yards. Like, this is who the Bills are. They don't have a lead dog. They don't have an alpha in this receiver room. They don't have somebody that you can just funnel all the targets to. You can get a lot of volume to Khalil Shakir because he's just a steady chain mover. But he's also just like, hey, 4 targets, 4 catches, 45 yards, the touchdown. He gets a lot of yards after catch. That's like him in that role. Keon Coleman has the big week 1. He's followed it up with 2 games under 30 yards. This is my prior speaking, and I did think that Keon Coleman played a lot better in week 1 than he did in his rookie season. And I think he's even had a couple of nice wins on in-breaking routes like quick slants and stuff, which, by the way, he was that in college, and he was that certainly in his rookie season, a good slant route runner against man coverage. But it's just a big gap in his game from a consistency perspective in the intermediate area and the separation perspective. And this is what I expected him to do this year. He was like the classic better in best ball pick, where he's going to have these big monster weeks and then he's going to have these slow weeks. And like, if you were looking at it on paper, you would have thought the slow week probably comes against the Baltimore Ravens, and that defense, if you're playing the matchup game, you're doing the matchup roulette, and you'd think like, oh, this Dolphins secondary with their mess of a cornerback room, that's where he's really going to go off. I thought he would really go off in this game. Did not happen. 4 targets, 0.74 yards per out run, just under 15% targets per out run. He had one pretty rough drop when Kirk Herbstreit's kind of talking like, this is the guy, they need to become the guy. And it was like the worst play to have that moment with, which is, I think, kind of the point. They need more from Coleman from a consistency perspective. Just not there. Maybe it gets there in time, but my suspicion is that as long as he's in this X receiver role, he's always going to be kind of a volatile player. So he can't be like a true number 1. And honestly, this is good for the Bills because they do have this variety of threats, the deep room here. They can throw a lot at you. They can attack in different like mismatches. Like, oh, your defense is going to show us this. Then we have a guy that can do this. Josh Allen is an elite quarterback. He can pick those matchups out. And Joe Brady is an awesome offensive coordinator that just rolls through all these personnel groupings. It would obviously be easier if they just had like, a Stephon Diggs type back in the day, but that didn't go well in the end. And I think they maybe have a little overcorrected. You could potentially argue that, but it is working for them right now. They're 3-0. They're one of the best offenses in the league again this year because they have Josh Allen and a really good offensive coordinator. So not really much complaint about what the Bills are doing on offense. And I do kind of think that we need to accept that this is what the Bills pass catching group is going to look like. And that's okay because it works for them. What's not working is the Dolphins offense, which I mean is the ultimate PPR scam offense right now. I mean, Devon Achane 7 for 29 as a receiver on 9 targets. 4.1 yards per reception. I mean, shoot, there was only one person on the team tonight who averaged over 10 yards per reception, and it was Tanner Connor on 1 catch for 13 yards on 2 targets. Everybody else, Tyreek, 9.8, Jalen Waddle, 7.8. Shoot, Jalen Waddle was sitting on a 2-catch, 0-yard, 1 touchdown line for a long stretch of this game, which, by the way, is not the first time he's done that in the last calendar year. Back in November of last season, he had a negative receiving yard day with 1 touchdown. It's like, what's going on in this offense, man? I thought the run game had its moments. I figured the run game actually would have some decent moments against this Bills front. That's going to remain a weakness for them. Ollie Gordon popped up for 24% of the snaps, 9 carries, 39 yards, got that goal line touchdown, the first touchdown of the game. 3 of 4 carries from the 12 or closer went to Ollie Gordon, according to Next Gen Stats, as Michael Florio shows us here on the screen. Malik Washington had a couple of rushing moments. Like I did think the Dolphins run game impressed me tonight. I don't know how much of that is just, the Dolphins maybe they have a decent run game. I think it's solidly well designed, but I do think that's mostly the Buffalo Bills front. In the passing game, this is just a mess, man. I mean, oh my God. A zone heavy matchup with guys on the back end that have coverage issues, that would have been like a fireworks fest for the Dolphins a couple of years ago, and it's just not now. I mean, Tua's a mess. That interception, I mean, it's like 3 weeks in a row that a game ends on a Tua interception. Tua turnover. Not good. Not good. He's not pushing the ball downfield well. He's making he can't get off his spot. Like anytime he's asked to create, it normally doesn't go well. He gets those swing passes to Devon Achane, who's like just set up to get smoked in the flats a couple of times in this game. Like, whoa, we're having hospital ball discourse. That's a pretty tough spot. I see people on Twitter, according to including Hayden Winks, who I was responding to with this post here, talking about like, hey, if I'm in charge of the Dolphins, I would be benching the quarterback before firing the head coach. I'm like, all right, we want to see Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's the backup with his number 0 jersey. We got Quinn Ewers on the bench as the QB3. You want to see that? I don't think either of those guys are going to look good. And I do think Mike McDaniel can someday have a second act as a really good play caller, maybe even another head coaching gig down the line. I do think it's time for like everything to just fall apart here with the Miami Dolphins. And, that sounds harsh. And I think at some point they will have nice little fantasy outings. Like you can probably play Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and, you get away with touchdowns tonight. They had some nice plays, but the quarterback's leaving a lot of plays on the field right now. The other part of this is anytime Mike McDaniel has not had Tua out there, the offense has basically been non-functional. I don't think this is going to look any better with Zach Wilson. It just might look different. And I do understand if people want to see something different than what we've gotten out of the Dolphins offense, especially these first 3 weeks. It's really just fallen apart there. And I do think maybe they will have a conversation about Tua and playing somebody else at some point just to kind of throw something else at the wall as they go into job saving mode. There was a report from Ian Rappaport tonight that Stephen Ross doesn't want to fire Mike McDaniel. I'm like, well, okay, if we're talking about it, you kind of want to fire Mike McDaniel. So I expect this to all end at some point. Maybe it's midseason, maybe it's end of season. But for now, you can get away with the PPR scam with Devon Achane. You can get away with, just don't watch the games type of production from Tyreek Hill, who doesn't look, to me, I still think he looks like he's not washed, he's just diminished. There's a difference between diminished and washed. I think Tyreek is clearly diminished. Jalen Waddle just doesn't get a lot of opportunity, so you need him to be as efficient as possible. He's a good player, so it does happen in this game in a zone-heavy matchup. But yeah, this is what the Dolphins are right now. And by the way, my last point on McDaniel, just because I have to get this off my chest. Let's not act like these coaches who get tied to these quarterbacks on the mega salaries are like victims here. Okay, Mike McDaniel chose this. Okay, he chose to go to Miami. He chose to immediately empower Tua. I remember the phone call, the FaceTime with him when he was on the private jet. Like, my job is to make you look good. My job is to lift you up. Well, he did that, and then you extend the guy. You're the head coach of the football team. This doesn't just like happen. Doesn't happen by accident. You know what I'm saying? Like, so this is his bed. He's got to lie in it. I think everybody, the floor falls out of this thing here pretty soon. So it is what it is. Until then, I think you can at least still get some fantasy points from these guys, because at least for now, this was very concentrated. Only 6 players got targets for the Miami Dolphins tonight. 10 go to Tyreek, 9 go to Devon Achane, 6 go to Jalen Waddle. That's about what you would expect.